Good morning, Bronco.
Good morning, Terry.
Well, I guess our session continues with some more interesting tidbits that you're going to talk about today.
We got a lot of things to talk about. Very interesting thing.
Okay, where do you want me to point the camcorder first?
Right above my head. And a little bit further up. The Burnett brothers. Okay, back right at the turn of the centuries, there was a jewelry store and pawn shop, and it was located in where the Jack in the Box is right now on Heron Street in Aberdeen. And anyway, I just happened to, somebody brought that sign in to me about 20 years ago. They found it floating in the river. And so I just happened to come upon that name in the city directory one time, and it told all about it, you know, about the Burnett brothers and being there right at the beginning of the century, and which was really a coincidence. Then I saw an ad in an early Aberdeen World, or it was Aberdeen Herald. In fact, I got it home, and if I can remember, I'll bring it here the next time I come down. And it had the Burnett brothers ad in it, and the printing was exactly the same as that printing on that sign. So that's why I knew it was from that building there at one time. So that's very good. Let's move on down. Well, here's some of the tools that they used to have in the lumber mills and also in the ranch. But here we go over here in the corner. That actually came from Portland, Oregon, and it belonged to a guy that was making Indian canoes there at one time. And it's a draw knife. And
which one are you pointing to now, Bronco?
Right here. And I hope you can see it.
Oh, okay.
It's right there. They call it a draw knife. I don't know what the Indians call it. But anyway, that's what it was used for in making the canoes at that time. But they've used them after that. Later on, they practically still do. I mean, carpenters do now, right now. They use them just like that. They're a little bit smaller, but they use them for shaping lumber and stuff like that for some of the things. And this is what they call a hay knife. You know, it's a hay saw or a hay knife for cutting bundles of hay in some way on the farmlands. And I've got a couple of them. And then we can move right on down. Here's another draw knife, which is like this, only this is the type now. They make them like this now almost. And then we got the picaroons. They used them in lumber mills all over the harbor. I don't think there's any around anymore, but they used to use them to draw the lumber off of the green chains and the conveyor belts. As the lumber came down the line, the guy would want to pile the lumber, and so he would hit the lumber, and they didn't care whether they damaged it or not, because that would all be planed anyway later on. And so then here's some more picaroons, and I just collected a lot of them. So we go up, let's go up to the top of the little, that's a little diving helmet that was made when I was a little kid. My neighbors that lived right behind my house and about a block away, they put that thing together, and they made it out of hot water tank that they used to use behind stoves for holding water to heat your houses. Anyway, but they cut that off and they made a tank out of it, I mean a helmet out of it, and put some celluloid in the front end, and then they put a valve on the top so they could put a air hose on it. And anyway, I was the guy on the other end of the hose pumping air for them guys when they were diving in the sloughs out here. And that's how I learned how to swim, because I wasn't pumping enough air, and they'd get mad at me, they'd throw me in the slough. I learned how to swim like that. But anyway, I happen to know who the guys are. I can still remember them real good. And one of them was Ray Murphy and Vincent Poneth and Dennis Burdine. And the thing that's really significant about it, their initials are on the inside of that diving helmet, and that makes it perfect. And I remember the guys real good, and I remember watching them do that. And I think that one of them is still alive, and that's Ray Murphy. I think that he lives in either the McClary area or somewhere in that area. So anyway, we'll move along. And let's go right above my head. A guy by the name of Adam Pilos brought me this chair, and some man from the Hump Tulips, somewhere up in that Hump Tulips area, he brought it to Adam and gave it to him, and the bottom of that, the seat of the chair is made out of deer skin, and it's a handmade chair, and it's really something. And Adam wanted me to have it. He just passed away about a year ago in a rest home, but it's a very unusual chair, and in its perfect shape, except it's awful. It's got a lot of smoke damage on it. And right the next chair above is one of the last chairs that I had from in here when we had a lot of them inside this tavern years and years ago. And that's the ones in still very good condition. There's a couple pieces, little rungs that are missing off of it. I still got another one home too. And but you can imagine guys that would be about 120 years old have sat in that chair. And also we have another chair right up here. And you get to look at it real good now. You can imagine that sitting on the ground like this. So it's on its side now. So that's how the guy made the chair. Now I found that out in the old homestead way up in Claylock, and I packed it out. And the people's name was Gilkey. And some other fellow found the house in the first place when he was deer hunting, and he told me about it. So when I went in, I took KOMO TV with me, and they did a Wanderlust program, and on that, based on going into that homestead, and it was about hour and a half trek into the wilderness, and we went in there and stayed there for a day at the house. And anyway, they aired the program about a year later with us guys going in and being there and coming out. And when it was on the air, it was only on for about 5 minutes because all the rest of the time we were drinking beer on the way in. So that made it a no-no, and especially for TV. And so there was only 5 minutes of it on the air. That's 5 minutes of that 2 hours we weren't drinking beer. Anyway, by the time we got out to the place, all the beer was gone anyway. So we were there a whole day after that without any beer. We had to boil our own water that was infested with pollywogs and things like that. And but it was quite a trip. Anyway, I brought that chair back out with me, and it was in the kitchen, and I brought a few other things from there. And the people's name were Gilkey, and I've seen the name a lot of times, and there's some people by that name living in Montezano, and I never did ever go and talk to them, but they moved out of there in 1906. That's the last bit of evidence we found that was of any dates in there. There was some old newspapers, stuff like that, that was on the wall and things. And the last dates were 1906. So that's when they left. And when this guy that found the house, when he went in there, and the first time when he was there, it looked like the people just got up from their dinner and walked out of their house and didn't come back. And the table was all set and everything. And he took all that stuff with him that was on the table and everything. But he had it in his pack sack, and he put his pack sack out in the brush, leaned it up against a tree, and then he went out to find where the road was, and he came back to get the pack sack, and he couldn't find the tree where he left it. So somebody else must have found it later on, because he never did ever find it, and all the stuff that he had that was from that house. So, and that's that story. But here we go over here on this corner. Now that's an old still that somebody brought me, and the coils are still on there, and the top of that thing, it's an old wash tub, and made out of copper. The top of it's got a pressure gauge on it. You can't see it from here, but it's there. And I don't even know if it's legal to have it, but it's here. And then that came out the Robert Gray, the Robert Gray deal, the lifesaver, that came off the Robert Gray dredge. And the guys that, the dredge is still there, and if we get a chance, we're gonna go and see that dredge one of these one of the times when you guys come down. I'll take you there, and it'll be something to see. I'm almost positive it's still there, and it'll be worth the trip. I wish I would have told you about that before. I don't know if I did, but it's underwater. They sunk it a long time ago, and it's way up on the little Okium River, and that was off of it. And I knew the guys that ran the dredge real good, and one of the guys' name was Fuzzy, and he was the engineer, and Fred Edwards, he's still alive, and he's in his, about 81 now, 82. And so here we go on something else here, that the deal, this pointed deal that we see there, it went on the end of a end of a dredge deal, when it would be on the end of a log, and for driving in the ground, when they put the boomsticks or the booms to drive them into, well, like pilings. When they drive the piles, they put them in the top part of it, so they wouldn't splinter when they hit the ground if the ground was too hard. So that was a lot of trouble making them rigs. You could imagine back in the old days, blacksmiths, and they'd do them by hand, and it was something to have, and put them on every one of them pilings when they were driving in hard ground.
Bronco.
Right in this little corner, you can't see it too good. Later on, I'll take that off of there. You can see it real good. But that was an ashtray that came off of the Robert Gray. And
The little box right there?
that little box right there is an ashtray. And the guy had it right in front of the wheel that he had in front of it in the captain's cabin. And they're hooked on to something there. Anyway, they brought that over to me.
Hey Bronco, before you continue, I just want to make sure, when you were talking about the pointy thing up there
Yeah,
for the dredging,
the metal
are you
thing.
talking about the thing that's suspended from the ceiling?
I'm talking about this thing below that.
Oh shoot.
The thing that's suspended from the ceiling is it's kind of like a buoy or a float. They use that for holding up the nets above the water, you know.
Okay.
When they're fishing, the guys were fishing. Somebody brought me that from Westport. Some lady that her husband owned Washington Packing Company or something like that. He owned that in Westport and also in Alaska.
Well, I made a mistake. I was shooting on
well,
that, and here you were talking about this thing here. I'm zooming in right now.
I would just go right down below that.
Yeah.
And the deal with the point on it, on this one, the big metal deal.
Yeah, I got that one now. Okay.
Now these telephone deals or electric insulators, they came from the old trail that used to go across from Cosmopolis and over the top of the hill, and they were on this wagon road that used to be there, and we cut these down. They had kind of like telephone poles or or light poles, whatever they were, and you could see they're made out of cedar, split cedar, and they were pretty tall, and them things were hooked on. Every one of them had one of them things on. So we'd cut 3 of them down and got them off. Here we go. See the little hat on top of that top bore motor? Anyway, that came from one of the guys that I think he was a petty officer or something like that on the Coast Guard cutter McLean, and he used to be docked at a little kind of a fish base